It's February 25th, 2001. This is a meeting of the Underground Utilities Mapping Project Team. And the schedule has previously been sent out to everyone. And we've got Kieran is going to be providing us with a vendor presentation on Utility Mapper here starting at 10 minutes after the hour, followed by our featured presentation, Brad Anderson, City of Moorhead, Minnesota. The rest of it's pretty standard. That leads us up to the boss telling us what we need to do.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining today. I do have a few things to comment on today. One is at our leadership team meeting last Thursday, one of the things that came kind of out of the work that we've been doing is kind of a three-step focus for us, just a way to think about what we're doing, broken up by our workflows and the PR. But it's really, what are we in this for? More accurate maps, sharing the data, and then that leads us to safer excavation. So at a very high level, I like to keep things simple. That's really what we're about. The more accurate maps, then sharing that data in the field should lead to safer excavation. But there's one thing I wanted to call everybody's attention to, and today the CGA put out a next practices initiative white paper, and they call it their call to action, and they did some work, and you can find it on the CGA website, Common Ground Alliance website, and they sent it to Steve, and we could probably post it, Steve.
Yeah.
But they identified three critical issues: facilities not marked accurately on time, excavator errors in the field, and then effective and consistent use of 811. And from that and all the work that you can read about in the paper, they came up to opportunities for systemic improvement that had the greatest return on investment. And I'll just read those four, but you'll notice number two. Number one was increase implementation of electronic white lining. Number two, pursue a GIS-based mapping system and database. Basically, that's why we're here. Three, utilize technology to account for variability and demand of locate tickets. And then four was contractually incentivize adherence to best practices of all of the steps in the underground safety process. But I just wanted to call everybody's attention to this CGA initiative, systemic improvement, and the point number two was GIS-based mapping. So we're leading we're on the cutting edge, leading edge here, and just wanted to again thank everybody for really helping us in the state of Minnesota drive this process. So those are the comments I had, Steve.
Okay, thank
Steve
you,
or Barb, is that link going to be out on notes?
Yeah, I'll absolutely make sure it's there. Yep.
Perfect.
And you can also go to commongroundalliance.com and it'll pop right up.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Administrative cleanup stuff. We've pretty well over the last 6 months got it all nailed down. I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but what I want to do here is give folks a frame of reference. And so Barb and I have put together a brief that we've been asked to talk to the Clean Water Council, because if we can keep pipes from getting damaged, that helps them out too. So they're interested in what we're up to. We're going to do that tomorrow morning. That brief and a script that will go with it will be made available to this group so that you've got a outreach item in the can ready to go. And there's a package of about 39 slides in there, and you can use it as ever how you want to use it. So why the slide that's up there is because I wanted to pass along the idea that in issuing a best practices document, we're looking at a right process that'll take somewhere most likely in the range of a year. And I am actually going to start framing up that document. And this is, if nothing else, to give everybody the idea. I want you to understand we are moving forward. And this doesn't mean that research and presentations and the rest of it can't go on while that process is underway. But what I would like to have happen next time that you meet in your teams, to start talking about the issues that you're up against in a format of item, discussion, recommendation. And so what I put up here is just kind of 3 bullets to help you understand what I mean by an item. So a 1 short sentence describing an issue in a way that is a subject line which helps the reader anticipate the problem. Example, XYZ company blue paint is causing confusion for excavation crews. That would be an example of an item. Discussions, typically 1 to 2 paragraphs, which provide enough history, context, or experience with an issue so a reader at the 8th grade level will understand what has caused the group to think that the item is an issue which needs solution. And so why I underlined that and why I said it that way is because within this group, there's just like there is in any professional group, a effort to talk about things using acronyms and a highly technical spin. And what I would ask you to think about is when writing a discussion, you want it to be written with enough level of understanding that if the document that we produce out of this effort goes up the food chain, there are going to be all kinds of people that will not understand the nuances in this world. And to the degree to be able to communicate to them, you're going to have to explain it with sufficiently enough clarity or a simple approach that they'll get the idea. And then finally, recommendation. I ended up writing a recommendation that ended up putting a $8 million simulator in at an air base in the Marine Corps. So when you get to an item, do not be scared if your recommendation out of your group is something that's going to cost money. Try to be practical, but if the answer is to spend $2 million to buy the ABC program, state that fact. And so all I'm asking you to do is when you start meeting in your groups, think about how you would construct your input to a document that this larger group is eventually going to issue. And then we've got a future large group meetings. We're still working on lining something up, but there are the dates in case you want to pencil them down. Our next large group meetings are March 25th, April 29th, and May 27th. And with that, Kieran, I'm going to hand over the screen to you if you're ready to go. Anything else? Going once, going twice. Gone. All right. Thank you so much, Brad. That was great. And that moves us on to next up. I am going to Travis. Can you grab the screen? You ready to go?
I am ready to go. So if you want to throw you got my slides, right?
Yep, I do. So give me 1 second here.
Well, he's pulling that up. I'll let everybody know that Group 1 met last week, and we discussed. We had a good meeting, about a half hour long. Kevin with Maxa and Scott Anderson and Joe Rebelke, myself, and Damon Nelton were all in it. And discussing several things about what our objective was for our Group 1. Of course, we are responsible for the guys, the boots on the ground, the guys in the field, and trying to give them workflows that would make things easy to collect GPS data as they're doing the locates. And of course, part of my responsibility was to go ahead and line up some of the presentations like you heard today from Karen, the first thing we came up with was actually fixing a confidence level, not just on the GPS, but on the locator itself. And so, it's important to have a confidence level on the tolerance level of your GPS point when you're taking it or when you're locating a line to understand if it's under a foot accurate or where it falls in that, but the locate, the GPS point that you're taking is no good if your locate's no good. And so Damon asked both Joe and myself if there's a confidence level that a locator spits out, and Yes, there is. I mean, there is a way to tell if the locate's accurate or not. But I say there's 5 checks and balances, but to be able to tell if your locate's good, you got to measure your magnetic field and see if it's round or not. And you do that by several different things. And the locator is able to tell you, through those 5 different measurements, if you got a good accurate measurement or not. A lot of people, just go off of the arrows and then they take a point, and that's not the proper way of locating. And so, it's about, also educating the public and making sure they're using the locators correct. And I know we ourselves, we always offer free training. We do NOLCA training as well. And I know Joe does as well, but it has to do with, at the core, educating the locators, making sure they're locating correctly. But we're also thinking about, how can we add an attribute for a confidence level from the locator within the points, GPS points that we're taking. So we're going to work on that. And then, we're also brought up the, go ahead and go to the next slide there. I can go off my paper here, Steve, but
I'm sorry.
What I'd say.
You'd think I'd learn how to drive this thing by now. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, you put it together a contract for an $8 million piece of equipment, but you can't go to the next slide, huh?
Yeah, I know, it's terrible. I'm trying to figure out
That's
how to
okay.
get back
I
to
mean, as you're doing it, I'm going to guess what the next slide is, but it's about sharing data. We went over how, hey, I guessed right.
Yeah, you just got to push the right button.
What kind of data do we need to share? Obviously, that has to do with Brad's group as well. What kind of data do they want? Of course, we're going to gather the point, but we're going to gather also a depth. So we got the location, the depth, and GPS accuracy, and then we'll probably try to get a confidence level from the locator within that as well. But what other attributes do we need to gather when we're out there? Above ground features, meters, valves, hydrants, exposures, et cetera, even photos. You got to take that into account as well. There's going to be several things. At least I know when in our group, when we go out and do depth of cover surveys, the contract D, the pipeline company always wants a picture of the exposure. They want pictures of valves. They want pictures of meters and everything. So, that's all stuff that we will put a list together on what to do. And then we talked about how to show the data, through the 2 external excavators. So Damon brought up the point, he made the point that, he's never had a problem sharing or getting maps from any city that he works in. And I don't know if Damon's on here, but he can kind of maybe address this. But every time they've gone out to a job and they requested GIS data or maps, he's never had a problem or anybody give him any kind of riff about sharing their maps. And they've just been really, really nice and shared whatever they've had. So he doesn't see there being a problem in the future about, as you can saw, Brad shares his obviously to the public, so anybody can get on there. So I don't think it's as big of a hurdle as we think it's going to be. And there just has to be some kind of uniform buy-in, is how Damon put it. And so everybody's kind of under, we talk about regulations and everything, but if you got good maps, you're going to be proud of them and you're going to share them anyway. If somebody's not sharing the maps, it's probably because they're embarrassed. That's kind of what I get out of it. So, but anyway, you can go ahead and go to the next slide there, Steve. And the last thing, like I talked about, education, understanding how a locator works, how to do proper locator training. And then on top of that, having whatever GPS device they're using, make sure they have proper training on that. So they're not just gathering a point without understanding if it's an accurate point or not. You get in a GPS uncertainty level, that's always up on the screen. At least with our app, you can see exactly what your GPS uncertainty level is. And you can even do some lock feature where they can't even take a point unless it meets a certain criteria. But they have to understand that they're, there's a difference between a fix and a float, when you're taking a point and try to always maintain, get a fix and get as accurate as you possibly can. And then we will just continue as a group, looking for other presenters, to go on top. We've already had the, subsurface maps, the cloud mapping service and the app that we offer. And then redetection, Vivax did their stuff and Point Man had their presentation last week and then, or last month, sorry. and then TerraFlow today. So I'll just keep on inviting those presentations and different software that's useful for using with the locators. So that's it. That's it for group one.
Thank you, Travis. Any questions for Travis? Going once, going twice, gone. Brad, you're
Good
back.
summary, Travis. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
The
Brad,
data
you're
flows,
back.
I didn't get any slides for you, Steve. I guess we talked about.
Yep.
I talked about it a little bit during the presentation, but I got excuses, but I got called away to city meetings. We had, I don't know how many hours of web meetings this week, so I did not get to send a meeting and to get group 2 together. I want to do that as soon as possible, possibly next week. And that's on my shoulders, and start talking to my group about breaking up this parts of the data flow and the data maintenance and how to tackle that and start writing up, the leadership has described, start getting together and start working on our best practices stuff and start refining this. So yeah, that's all on my shoulders. It's my fault I didn't get that done for our meeting, but other than that, not too much to
Brad, I like the way that this flow chart is, you can easily see now who's the facility operator and then who's accessing the data. So I like the way that you are adjusting it.
Yeah, and it's a joint with Bob Vasquez. I got to give Bob credit. We'll look at it and he'll take it and make some changes, and then I'll get a set eyes on it and make a couple changes, and then he'll make a couple, and we need to start working with our group too. But it's a joint effort. One person can't do it alone, so I got to give Bob credit for it. But it will help. So I agree. I think it is coming together.
Well, thank you very much. The good piece of work, and the presentation. Obviously, you had to put some time in to put that together. So don't beat yourself up too hard there, Brad.
Yeah, I got to work on keeping my day job.
Generally a good idea.
Yeah, and sorry I changed my background. I can put the car background back up if you want.
All right, Karen. I'm sorry, it's Valerie. You're here today, aren't you?
It's Mary. I am here today. I just had to unmute myself. Thank you, Steve. So I wanted to provide an update on the outreach group. If you could go to the next slide, please. Well, while Steve is working that out, I just wanted to mention that we have transitioned the group lead from Karen Strub.
Why won't this advance? There we go.
Infrastructure resources to me. Although Karen has graciously agreed to introduce me there. Hopefully you can hear me a little bit better. So our outreach group met on Monday, February 23rd. It was a relatively short meeting, but we had a discussion about creating a lessons learned presentation for IAM, utilizing Johnny Pangrel's experience as a hydrovac operator. I also provided some updates on our outreach activities, which includes that IR is working on a 2-page UUMPT article for our special locate issue in DP Pro magazine, which is to be published in April. Once this article is released, we will share it with Allison Slatz, who is a GIS project manager with the state of Minnesota. She is willing to share the information we publish to this on the state website. We want to note that before the article is published, Karen will share it with you, Steve, and with Barb to get your approval. And then I do want to mention that DP Pro reaches over 50,000 people through its print and digital sources, so that's a good reach. I also wanted to mention, if you could go to the next slide, Steve.
Yep.
I just had a question. I forget what IAM is. What does IAM stand for?
IAM, let me quickly check my notes.
Oh, asset management, something asset management?
I think it's industrial asset management. Brad, could you confirm?
Information asset management. Okay, well, close enough. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So I want to also mention that Infrastructure Resources is launching a new initiative called the Excavation Safety Alliance. It's a virtual community for safety professionals to find resources and solutions to help ensure best practices in infrastructure safety. This is going to be launched in March. We are very excited to share that we are featuring some UUMPT videos on our platform under partner content. The content is available for free, and we're going to embed the videos listed in the UUMP YouTube channel. The videos include the MGACP EPC project videos, the Underground Utilities Matching Project Team presentations, and the Underground Utilities Mapping Project Team meetings. And then the next slide, Steve, is just what we're going to be working on in the future based off our meeting we had on Friday. We're going to begin researching possible groups such as the Minnesota City Leagues to get in front of for presentations of UUMPT, its purpose, ways to promote our best practices document, et cetera. So we're looking forward to getting that started. And that's the update that I have for now.
Thank you very much, Valerie. Any questions? Going once. Going
Go
twice.
back a slide, Steve.
Okay.
The featured videos, do we need to, are those all open to the public now? On our website?
Are you speaking about the stuff that's on the YouTube channel? All that stuff is readily available.
Okay, so those are already on all the
Yep.
YouTube channels. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay. Any more questions? All right. With that, we're on to Dean and team. Oops. There we go.
A very brief report. Not much going on in our group right now. As reported previously, there's not a lot in terms of regulations out there that really limit or govern what data can be shared. It's really up to us to perform a balancing test in each industry segment to determine what's appropriate and what's where the risks are and where the balancing is. We're finishing up looking at the United Kingdom's NUAR report from their pilot project. 2 points came out of that. One is that they pointed out that data sharing agreements they felt were key to establishing, in the case of the UK, it's going to be a nationwide registry at some point. But even for a state registry or sharing process like we're talking about, the same thought would be applicable, that data sharing agreements would be key. And also terms and conditions for sharing information through websites. To our chagrin, neither of those appear to have been fully developed when their pilot project was done, which was concluded almost a year ago now. So with some help from Jeff Zeiss, we have reached out to the contact at NUAR and asked if they can advise us as to whether there's been any development of agreements that they can share with us and we can get a look at to start to get some ideas about that. I haven't heard anything back yet, Jeff, so if you're still on and I haven't heard anything by the end of business tomorrow, I'll be reaching back to you for some assistance in contacting Holger. The second point was the need to keep it simple. And the report, even though it was 250 pages, was pretty concise and direct, at least on one page where they said that to make sure that the whole project wasn't counterproductive, you had to make sure that it was kept very simple for the people actually using the GIS data sharing out in the field. And so I think that's the next challenge for us as a group, probably going industry by industry, people from groups 1 and 2, maybe with some help from our group, we'll need to go through and try to figure out, what is the minimum that should be collected? what is the minimum that should be shared depending upon who you happen to be sharing it with. And it'll probably vary depending upon the type of underground infrastructure that's involved. So that's the report for now. Any questions? Then back to you, Steve.
All right, thank you. The next section here is going to be the open discussion. And I would just like to note before I forget it, we're going to have a special presentation next time we get together. This presentation will not be available on YouTube. The week prior to our large group meeting, we will be receiving a brief from Ian Ross of the Scottish Vault on the effort that's been underway in Scotland for a number of years to develop and make available the underground utility information in a way that supports the community. So we'll get the opportunity to hear what the Scotland approach was to things. And I think, Dean, you'll be able to pick up out of that discussion a number of arrangements that they made to facilitate that happening. So again, if you do not attend our large group meeting next time, you'll miss out on that presentation because we'll only be able to offer that as a one-time recording type event that will play back from the leadership meeting, and then it will not be on YouTube going forward. So I think it's worthwhile to, if you can pencil in as a priority event to come in, and it will be during the first part of our meeting next week or next month. And with that, the floor is open.
I guess I'd just like to ask an open-ended question. How do people feel we're progressing? I know we're putting a lot of push right now onto best practices as our next focus. What is the feeling of each of you or some of you as to how we're progressing?
Well, Barb, I think from my standpoint, I know that we probably have about 6 weeks left before a lot of people get very busy. It's hard to believe that the start of the dig season is almost upon us again.
Mhm.
And to a certain extent, I think severing us into these 4 groups has been very helpful. But now, as we start to move back into thinking about best practices, I think it particularly with respect to groups 1 and 2, it may almost be a little bit counterproductive, because I think some folks from each of those groups are really the subject matter experts that'll be needed as you pick, a particular type of utility. What kinds of attributes should be collected and what types should be shared. It seems to me that at least we can start the discussion best. Maybe you have to finish it and polish it in a larger group, but you can start it best by having, a subset of a half a dozen people, for example. Maybe that's the wrong number, but say it's a half a dozen people, some from group 1 and some from group 2, gathering for, again, I would split it apart into each of the utilities unless Brad or Travis have different ideas, because I think you really have to start focusing about any issues that a particular industry may have in order to really start thinking about what attributes we want to make sure they're collecting, and then which ones they may share in particular situations.
Any additional thoughts on Dean's comments? Going once, going twice.
I would echo Dean. I do think we need to separate some by utility, because each of the different utilities are going to have some unique concerns or unique types of data they're willing to share, and some may have some types of data that they're not willing to share, especially when you get into the more competitive utilities, telecoms.
Okay. Point noted. So Dean, are you thinking then within the respective groups that before they even try to, if you will, look at some generic issues, that they should first start down with respective utilities? Same question to Kevin.
Well, I would say that's really up to Brad and Travis. If they feel it's useful to start in a larger group, you know, that's fine with me. I just know that it's difficult based on what I see lies before us.
Yeah.
I think also what lies before us, as Dean said, is the busy season coming. So the more we can get done in this next 6 weeks or so in this attribute area would be great.
You want to finalize product in 6 weeks, Dean, or what's your deadline?
No, I think that if we don't start within the 6 weeks period, I think that almost guarantees that you won't be starting until, you know, late Q4 this year. That would be my concern.
I'm the type that always studied for my test the night before, so just tell me a deadline.
I guess my question, it's really a question to this group. We've got, what was it, 19 or 20 on today? So, you know, how many will be able to be on in May? I would think it's quite a bit fewer.
Yeah,
So I
there's
guess
a lot of us that are.
Yeah, I mean,
Our day
personally, it
jobs
doesn't
will
make much of a
trump
difference
being
to
able
me.
to be active.
My busy season's pretty much year round. I mean, I'll be out in California all next week.
Yeah, mine's real busy right now too, Damon.
Well, I think the important thing is to start identifying, breaking out the issues with better clarity than the spaghetti that was originally thrown up on the wall when we got going, and within the respective groups, Travis, Brad, start thinking about how as a team do you want to give one item to one individual to start working on fleshing out, or do you want to just create a list of the issues that your group can identify? Do that first. I mean, just kind of circling back to what Dean was saying, the important part is, and I know Travis, your group has already done this, is to start building that item discussion, recommendation, best practices approach to how you're thinking about it, so that when we get further on down the road and pen goes to paper, that you're ready to go there.
I mean, we got the chicken scratch on the chalkboard, but can we just give that to you, Dean, and you do all the writing? Make it professional.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. What help do you need to help? Because I know maybe somebody else can help you.
We can talk about that offline, Travis, and we'll see, you know, where you're at and how we can support you.
Yeah, I mean, you gave us kind of that diagram or an example of another project, and that's fine. I mean, we'll be able to spit something out, but like I said, I'm not good. I mean, Valerie's group is probably good at writing stuff down or making it actually English.
We might have to have a combination group 1, group 2 side meeting again, like we did
Yeah, I
last
think
fall.
that's a good idea, Brad. You know, when we get done with art stuff, we swing it by your group and see what you guys think.
Yeah, I can see the summertime being really probably just as, you know, more busy for your group, but At least so we're all on the same page. We're not duplicating effort at the least, but yep, that's a good idea. We should look at that in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, Brad,
think-
because I know like during group one's meetings, we continuously kind of say, well, this is kind of group two or the sharing part, but you know, so
Yep.
I think there's some benefit to that again.
And I think infrastructure resources can assist in, you know, once we have some draft created, to take a look at it and see how we can clean it up or streamline the information.
Yeah, thanks, Valerie.
Mhm.
This is a volunteer army, so to speak, so we don't want to put undue pressure. We just want to keep it moving and give whatever support's needed.
Okay. Barb, what do you think? Is there anything else from the floor?
Not for me, thank you.
Going once, going twice, gone. All right, so we're done early again. The only thing I would pass along at this point would be a reminder as to the next time we meet is going to be March 25th at 1 o'clock, and goals before the next large group meeting. Within the next small group meeting, we've already beat this to death, but begin using the item discussion recommendation format to frame your discussions and start developing your group's best practices input. And, Travis's comment about the whiteboard, it can be as simple as that. Somebody scribbling it down just to get the process going, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, and just add on to that, if you want to take a picture of your documents that you scribble out, and somebody else can put it, type it up and make it look nice.
Okay. And with that, nothing comes merely by thinking about it. We are a wrap unless there's any last minute drive by from the group. Going once, going twice, gone. Thank you, everybody. You have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.